Good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Wanted to get on and talk to everybody about certain funded pension trusts. We're actually going to wait a few minutes, let some people get on. It's a quick little section I'm going to read over. I'll leave actually what I'll do is I'll post a link in the comments section. And that way you guys can grab it and look it up real quick. And basically what we're talking about when we talk about certain funded pension trusts, we're talking about that old age pension fund. You know, Social Security, Federal Insurance Contributions Act, Self-Employed Contributions Act, things like that. And they're all according to a plan. And under that section that you see in the comments there, it's 26 CFR section 1.501 C18-1. And the title is Certain Funded Pension Trusts. In general, organizations described in section 501C18 are trusts created before June 25th, 1959, forming part of a plan. So even though it was created before June 25th of 1959, in general, organizations described in this section are forming part of a plan. The rest of the plan will be exposed as we read on. For the payment of benefits under a pension plan. Now remember, when you sign up for Social Security, that is an old age pension fund through a employee shared bond plan, shared employee stock certificate disposition, or something like that. I just went over it here in the meeting earlier. Funded only by contributions of employees. It's not funded by anything else. It's funded only by contributions of employees. So comprehend, you haven't made any payments. Social Security Administration is the one that's claiming they're making payments, and therefore there's an obligation because they're the ones making the payment. And so there's a debt that's being paid because you only made a contribution. In order to be exempt, such trusts must also meet the requirements set forth in section 501C18A, B, and C, and paragraph B of this section. Now, all of these talk about, the first three talk about the the sum of such corporations' deficits in earnings and profits for prior taxable years. Now remember, you're not taxable yourself. So there's no reason you should be filing taxes. The only reason you're filing taxes is because your contributions are being made as payments. They're being accepted by the state, who then makes payments as taxes into the fund to make the payments, to pay the bills. That's the only reason. B also states the sum of such corporations' deficits. And again, this time it says for taxable years beginning after December 31st, 1959. So now we see created before June 25th, 1959, and now we see after December 31st, 1959. Then in C, it says the sum of such corporations' earnings and profits for prior taxable years beginning after December 31st, 1962. Then it goes on to explain a couple other things. So what they're doing here is, even though they said they are trust organizations described in section 501c18 are trusts created before June 25th, 1959, they must also meet requirements for these others, which are extensions of the original plan of these such trusts. So they're still in the plan. Now, when it comes to the paragraph B part, it says creation before June 25th, 1959. It says, in general, the trust must have been created before June 25th, 1959. A trust created before June 25th, 1959 is described in section 501c18 and this section, even though changes in the makeup of the trust have occurred. Changes in the makeup. It was made up to have effect in 1962. It was made up to have effect in 1959. It was made up to have effect in before June 25th, 1959. That's just a change in the makeup, and that's what they're talking about there. Change in the makeup of the trust have occurred since that time, so long as these are not fundamental changes in the character of the trust or in the character of the beneficiaries of the trust. So long as the character of the trust and the beneficiaries itself remains the same, the general makeup, whether it be the administration of the dates, times, dollar amounts, things like that, those can change. Those are different makeups of the trust. But so long as the trust character and the character of the beneficiaries remain the same, then it's still within the plan. Increases in the beneficiaries of the trust by the addition of employees in the same or related industries, whether such additions are individuals or of units, will generally not be considered a fundamental change in the character of the trust. In other words, your heirs and legacies, your children. When you pass this stuff on, you're passing it on. That doesn't create a fundamental change in that concept of time and partners or parties, because that's still in the same character. A merger of a trust created after June 25th, 1959 into a trust created before such a date is not in itself a fundamental change in the character of the latter trust, if the two trusts are for the benefit of employees of the same or related industry. So that's how they covered the time lapse from for starting out. Trusts considered in this section are constructed under before June 25th, 1959. And thereby now, because they still remain in the same character, the fundamental changes haven't changed the characters. The only things that have changed have been times and dates. So go back, and it says requirements for qualifications. A trust described in section 501c18 must meet the following requirements. And here's the important part, people, because like I said, the Social Security application is directly tied to your mom and dad. When you're a minor, you can't perform contracts, so they can't technically use your Social Security account until you are of age and sign that Social Security application. Now they can activate that Social Security account. Prior to that, anytime mom and dad took you to the hospital, they used mom and dad's Social Security account. Okay? The requirement here under number 1 says local law. Okay? Under the local law, mom and dad, under their Social Security account, had a child at a local hospital and created a hospital statement of live birth that was then, under local law, transferred to the county registrar, who made an abstract of information and created a deed. certificated it, deposited it into a general fund, and then exported it to both the state and the federal governments, whereupon the federal government created the birth certificate, the primary account, and the state created a certificate of live birth, which is known as the minor or secondary account. It is the pass-through entity. The trust must be a valid existing trust under local law and must be evidenced by an executed written document. The executed written document is the original statement of live birth. That's the evidence. The trust itself will not have it in there, but it will be evidenced by it. Funding. The trust must be funded solely from contributions of employees, which is what we just read earlier, who are members of the plan. Like I said, mom and dad are already members of the plan, even though the children are not. The heirs, the legacy are not. They can't be part of the plan yet until they sign that SSA application. For purposes of this section, the term contributions of employees shall include earnings on and gains derived from the assets of the trust. If the county is using Federal Reserve notes for the passing of all these instruments that are known to have zero intrinsic value, then what are the assets of the trust? They can't be the Federal Reserve notes. That means the trust has no body, has zero intrinsic value, and therefore there's no worth to the trust, and therefore the trust is void, vacate. So the only true assets of the trust are the inherent assets that you or your mom and dad are actually, under the presumptions of government, handing over under a pledge, a registration. They register the birth. And therefore, they are actually registering the assets of the trust. So when you turn 18, the assets of your labor, your sweat equity labor, is part of the trust. That's what's funding the trust. And they're calling it contributions, which were contributed by employees. Then it goes on to say, number 3, creation before June 25th, 1959. In general, the trust must have been created before June 25th, 1959. Trust created, we just read that because we referred to this section above here when it said paragraph B. Examples. The provision of this subparagraph may be illustrated by the following example. Assume that Trust C, for the benefit of members of a participating local national union X, was established in 1950 and adopted by 29 locals before June 25th, 1959. The subsequent adoption of Trust C by additional locals of National Union X in 1962. Say the number of locals increased to 73, and those new participants that were present in 1962 will not constitute a fundamental change in the character of the trust, since such subsequent adoption is by employees in the related industry. You're in an industry called personal service contracts. When you sign that SS5 application, what you're doing is you're signing up for a personal services contract. And that's basically what you're doing. 4, payments of benefits. The trust must provide solely for the payment of pension or retirement benefits to its beneficiaries. It says nothing about payment of bills or rents or anything of the facilities that the Social Security Administration uses throughout the countries, throughout the states in the union. For purposes of this section, The term retirement benefits is intended to include customary and incidental benefits such as death benefits within the limits permissible under Section 401. Customary and incidental. Those are two terms that are kind of outside of their scope, and that's why we come at them as a foreign entity, because it's not customary and it is not incidental, and therefore incidental, that my true benefit be the actual asset value, the actual value of the actual assets, and not the converted value, which we're going to talk about next. Number 5, diversion. Diversion, dual, version, dual version. Version, what version? Your version or my version? How do you view it? Depends on how. Does it depend on how I view it? Dual vision, dual version, dual view. You have to come at them and say, I see things differently. Diversion. The trust must be part of a plan which provides that before the satisfaction of all liabilities to employees covered by the plan, the corpus body, corpus is body. Remember I said Federal Reserve notes have zero intrinsic value, so therefore there's no body of the trust. The actual corpus, the actual body of the trust, is the actual value of the actual assets, which is your sweat equity labor through personal services contracts. The body and income of the trust. See, they're considering it as income of the trust, not as your actual assets, according to your sweat equity labor. They don't consider it your property. It's property of that trust. Cannot be used for or diverted to any purpose other than providing a pension or retirement benefits. That's why they can only accept contributions to pay the taxes. And then out of the income that they receive from the funds that they invest, they put back into that fund and then make the benefit or pay the benefits. In connection with the administration of a plan, administration, they are administrating under the administrative law because you were registered at birth. And your mom and dad didn't realize it and didn't teach you that, and therefore you didn't catch it, and therefore you went ahead and signed up for the same program. And when you have children, you're going to do the same thing and register your children. Don't do it. Administration of a plan providing pension or retirement benefits shall, in other words, must be considered a payment to provide such benefits and shall not affect the qualification of the trust. Period. I'm not going to read 6. You can read it if you want. I'll post this link when I'm done. But number 7, we're just about done here. It says objective standard. Objective standards. The trust must be part of a plan which requires that the benefits be determined according to objective standards. Thus, while a plan may provide similarly situated employees with benefits which differ in kind and amount. When you receive benefits, are you receiving the amount of the benefit that is equal to the contributions that you paid in? And if they are equal amounts, are they of the same kind or are they different in kind? Do they differ in kind and amount? Thus, while a plan may provide similarly situated employees, situated, positioned, or dispositioned employees with benefits which differ in kind and amount. Again, we're talking about the actual value of the actual assets which should be conveyed and paid to us for our sweat equity labor through units of silver dollars, dollar for dollar, not Federal Reserve notes. These benefits may not be determined solely in the discretion of the trustees. Guess what? That means the discretion of the beneficiary comes into play. If you're not placing your discretion in these trusts, then it is not being considered, and it is determined solely in the discretion of the trustees. Notice, these benefits may not, but they may be determined solely in the discretion of the trustees. So until you step up and recognize yourself as in a position of a beneficiary and realize that in the law, in the eyes of equity, the law sees that the beneficiary is the true owner, and the true owner is the one that makes the first assignment by granting first any assignment of any trustee position. So when you're filing that SS5 application, if you really intend to use those Federal Reserve funds in that manner, better make sure you're going to be operating in the capacity to be holder in due course of the office of a United States citizen. So you can operate that dual citizenship and gather up your own broker to do the correct transfers. Because right now you're committing yourself to what's known as gratuitous transfers. I just discussed that earlier in my meeting earlier as well. So think about this stuff, people, and realize you're the one committing these acts by not doing the research and realizing the importance of everything that you're signing, starting from the age you're 18 until the age you have children, till the age you pass on, and your children are living in a world of limbo, signing the same documents you were without knowing. Learn this stuff, people. Educate yourself. Read this stuff and see it for what it is. Certain funded pension trusts. Certain funded pension trusts. And like I said, that link is in the comments section. You can view that. Please pay attention to the header in the post. I've got my PayPal link there. If anybody's interested in helping fund me, send me some love. I always appreciate it. In the meantime, that's about all I've got for now. I just wanted to make an addition to the meeting I did earlier because I lost this page, and I definitely wanted to come back on and make an addition to that. So those that are watching this video, please go back and watch my Zoom recording that I've already posted prior to this. And those of you that watched that meeting, please review those notes and see how this ties in. This was the last note I was going over, and I wanted to certainly go over that part about the creation and payments of benefits and diversion, as well as the objective standards. The last thing I want to mention here is the effective date. Like we discussed in the very beginning, it says in general, organizations described in this section, 501c18, are trusts created before June 5th, 25th, 1959. But the effective date here is the provisions of section 501c18, and this section shall apply with respect to taxable years beginning after December 31st, 1969. And that is the part C up in the very top, where it says the sum of such corporations' earnings and profits for prior taxable years beginning after December 31st, 1962. So think about this stuff, people, and realize what they're doing to you, what they're doing to your legacy, both before you and after you. If you don't stop it, it'll keep going and keep robbing everybody of their sweat equity. So think about that and learn how to do the conversion back, reversion back to the actual value of the actual assets of the units of silver dollar as opposed to Federal Reserve notes. Please, please, please. I can't do it by myself. We have to come by in large numbers and start doing this. And the only way we're going to do that is by coming in large numbers to do the research. I'm doing my research. I'm putting this information out there. I don't want you to believe me. I don't want you to believe the government. I don't want you to believe the IRS. I don't want you to believe Social Security. I don't want you to believe your neighbor. I don't want you to believe your mom and dad. And even if you think your children are smarter than you, I don't want you to believe your children are smarter than you. I still want you to do the research so you know. Quit believing, please. And remember, folks, in the meantime, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless. Have a great night. Bye.